Hello and welcome to the Cohn Zone. I'm Grant Cohn. That's my dad, Lowell Cohn. It's been quite an eventful week, and I'm glad that my dad can come on here and be the voice of reason. So, Dad, would you like to start the show off? Would you like to be the MC today?
I think I'll be the MC today, if that's okay. Hi, everybody. I'll put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. There's been a big to-do this week, and my son, Iggy Grant, has been in the spotlight, I guess, nationally. And I have a few things I want to say. I'm going to offer praise. I want to praise, well, it's between Grant and Javon Kinlaw. You know that. I'm not going to get into any of that because what happened in their meeting is private.
Yep.
But I want to praise Javon Kinlaw, and I want this to go out over the whole United States. He was very upset with Grant. Grant became upset with him. They met. They talked it out, and they shook hands. That's a big deal. So I want to praise Javon Kinlaw for being a stand-up guy.
Yep.
Iggy, you feel that way too, don't you?
Absolutely. It was very difficult for him to do what he did, and he did it.
Yeah. So, Javon, if you watch this, I'm Grant's dad. I call him Iggy. It's the name we have in the family. You guys may even turn out to be friends. He's a good guy, and we all feel in our family that you're a stand-up guy. I also want to praise John Lynch because John was the mediator who made this happen, and he handled it the way a real grown-up should handle it.
Yeah.
He brought the two parties together and was able to show them that they have common ground.
Yeah.
I no longer know Lynch because I'm out of it. And when he came to the Niners, I was already gone. But as you know, I knew him when he was a young adult at Stanford. And in the book I wrote about Bill Walsh, which I haven't looked at in decades, I believe there's a whole chapter on John Lynch.
There is.
There is, right?
Yes.
And I was really impressed with him as an undergraduate. Not only that he was a great player, but with his poise and his maturity and his deep down goodwill. So
I think you wrote in that chapter that he seemed more grown up than you.
I'm sure
I think you wrote that. Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
And he was like 21. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like approaching 50 or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I also want to praise Grant. Grant didn't lose his cool. Grant was open to the overtures from the 49ers. Grant was open to John Lynch and continues to be open to Javon Kinlaw and is deeply grateful for how this thing worked out. So my first thing is praise. I'm going to talk later in the show about some tough times I had with athletes and how they worked out. And they worked out. So, okay, that's the first thing.
Real quick, San Fran 49er fan says, "In Sweetie we trust."
I trust Sweetie. I love Sweetie. Now, a lot of people, I look at the Twitter, and a lot of people come on
real quick. Someone says, "I'm confused." Kinlaw says it wasn't squashed. He also took that down. Just want to say, he took it down.
Yes. I think Kinlaw. You know what? I'm not going to say anything else.
It's over. I just wanted to point that out. He took it down. That's significant. Okay.
It's significant. And I want to praise him for taking it down.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to say Javon Kinlaw is a stand-up guy.
Me too. He is a stand-up guy.
Okay. So we're going to move on. I was going to say that a lot of people write to me about Iggy on Twitter. If they say really crummy things, I block them. He's my son. I love him. But there were certain things that I thought were pertinent, and I'd like to talk about a little. One theme was that Grant wants to be like Skip Bayless. And Grant, if you don't mind, I'm going to talk a little bit now.
Yeah.
Of course, I know Skip very well. You may not remember because you're younger, some of you. Skip was a sports columnist at the San Jose Mercury News. They had quite a combo. They had Mark Purdy and Skip Bayless. What a 1-2 punch.
About 20 years ago.
Mark is a dear friend of mine, and Iggy knows Mark very well.
Yeah.
Okay, what is Skip like in real life? He's quiet. Iggy, he's very quiet.
Yeah.
Unassuming.
Interesting.
He's extremely intelligent.
Yeah.
He's a good listener, and he's a hell of a writer. He started out like we did as a writer. He was a writer in Dallas, a columnist.
Wow.
And he he could really write. Now, I noticed that when we would go on the road, the writers often go out to dinner together. Skip was on his own. He didn't come with us. Maybe he saw that he had this other career, this multi-million-dollar career looming, and maybe he felt we weren't at his level, and maybe we weren't. But I want you to know that that's how Skip really is. When he's on ESPN, and I really don't watch it very much because I'm retired and I don't do that much about sports, he projects a certain kind of personality, which is very full of worked up. Yeah, thank you. I was looking
angry,
for
worked up, no sense of humor.
That's what I was going to say. No sense of humor. And now that's not who he really is, but that's the character he portrays.
And it works for him. He makes a lot of money.
Yeah, and he's a good guy. It works for him. People watch him. People get worked up. So good for Skip. But what I would say is that Grant's personality on air. No. Let me first say what Grant's personality in real life is. Grant is such a good heart. Everybody who knows him from when he was a little boy at Peter Pan preschool, he has a big heart. He's a listener. He's fair. He wants to like people. On air, Grant can be very funny, funnier than I can be. And Skip is not like that. He's different from Skip. Grant can be very critical. He does, the report card, and he does the good and the not so good from the OTAs. And we're going to talk about that in a bit also. He can be ironic, which I think is fair. He can be sarcastic. The point is he can be entertaining. And that's why he has almost 50,000 people on his YouTube channel. So if people are offended that he sometimes criticizes players, well, that's when you become a professional athlete, that's what you're letting yourself in for. And fans want honest criticism, and sometimes they want it with style, which means sarcasm, irony, that sort of thing.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
That's right. Well, it's interesting.
It's both. It's both.
When I was at Stanford, I did my doctorate in English literature, and I wrote my dissertation on Joseph Conrad, who probably you never even heard of or read. And Joseph Conrad was a great writer, and he said the whole history of mankind is 3 sentences. They were born, they suffered, they died.
Right.
That's it.
That's
the whole story. If you look at any Shakespeare tragedy, they were born, they suffered, they died. Yeah. And what he meant was there's nothing new. What's new is how you write it, how you tell it. And Iggy has a very unique, varied way of telling stories. And what you're watching him for is certainly the news, but more than that, his perspective and how he does it. And that's why people read me when I was a columnist, because I had a background in literature and I was able to come at it in many different ways, often with satire. Not that the players actually knew what satire was. So, Iggy, I don't want to put down Skip because I'm fond of Skip. Yeah. I hope I haven't put him down.
No, I mean, people say I'm like unprofessional because I'm acting like Skip. First of all, I'm not. But second of all, Skip is one of the highest paid sports journalists in America. Like, he's doing it right. He's a very smart guy, and no one says he's unprofessional. I mean, he's handsomely rewarded for his efforts. So I don't understand why I'm unprofessional if he's so good. Same with Stephen A. Smith and Jim Rome. I mean, honestly, Jim Rome makes $30 million a year, I think. And he got famous for calling Chris Everett to his face. I didn't do anything like that.
That's right.
You did that.
Yeah. So anyway, the point is, Iggy, do you think I've explained the differences between you and Skip, or are there other differences?
There's one more. I mean, Skip, he's very smart. And the way he thinks a sports argument should be constructed is him as the bad guy. They're sort of the villain who gets upset, talking to someone else who's the good guy, and they yell at each other. And it's contrived. But it's how it's how ESPN does it with Stephen A. Smith and stuff. It's like, you and I don't do that. We actually talk. We don't yell at each other. We actually listen. And it's so much more authentic. I think Skip's been doing it for almost 20 years, and I think people realize it's a whole shtick and it's not authentic. And it seems like he doesn't really believe half the opinions he makes. He's just sort of doing it because it works. And I think there's a level of authenticity that we have that he doesn't have. Not to talk again, but it's just different. And I think we want to be different from him because some of the things he does are kind of corny, in our opinion.
Okay, but I don't want to put down Skip.
No, it's just not our style.
Let's be clear. I have no idea if Skip believes what he says or not.
Yeah,
I don't talk to him about it.
I don't know either.
Yeah, I want to come back on that. I don't know either. He may be absolutely sincere with every one of his opinions, and God love him. Yeah. But I'd say your point about the bad guy is very interesting, and the fact that he's relatively humorless on the show is important because today you're somber, but very often you're very humorous, and so I think there's a difference.
You think I'm somber? I can be funny. I'll be funny the rest of the show. Here's the joke.
You can be whatever the hell you want to be.
NorCal Troca says, "What do you guys think about the Raiders bringing in Colin Kaepernick for a workout?"
Okay, I'm going to tell you what I think. First of all, they're never going to sign him, and in a way, it's no fault of Collins because he's been out of the league for 6 years. Iggy,
yeah,
he can't compete. It's they're doing it. I'd say for a PR stunt. And also to show that their heart is in the right place. But yeah. I don't think there's a chance in a million that they're going to sign him.
I've always said that the NFL should put the ball in his court and bring him in for a workout. I mean, I'm glad the Raiders did it. Apparently, Ian Rappaport said it went well. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It'd be a good story if he came back and was a backup quarterback. I still don't see how Nate Sudfeld could be better than him. But
okay,
it's been 6 years. Amtodd99 says Javon posted on his IG. It was never squashed. He just showed up out of respect for the organization. Eric Armstead is still trying to get you out of here, Grant. Yeah, but then he took it down. We'll talk about. You want to talk about Armstead now?
Okay. Yes, but this is the second comment that is referred to that. Javon did put up something about it's not over, but then he took it down.
Yeah.
So my feeling about Javon is he's emotional. By the way, Grant is emotional too. Yep. And so am I. We're emotional people. And I understand that. But then he thought it through and he took it down. And that's why I say he's a stand-up guy.
Agreed.
I have only praise for Javon Kinlaw. Okay. But I want to talk a little about Eric Armstead. And I want to make it very clear. I am not talking about Javon Kinlaw. I am talking about Armstead. I don't know him. I think he's a pretty good player. I don't think he's a great player, but I think he's a force. I think he's valuable to the team, and I think he's essential to the team. I also know he does literacy projects in Sacramento, and so my feeling is he's a very good person, and what he's doing in Sacramento is valuable. And I understand he's probably, in his mind, defending a teammate. Okay, I respect that. But I want to criticize him. And this is why. He's been putting up tweets and whatever crap, I don't know what they're called, and saying that Grant is going around the facility, the Niners facility, wanting to get hit so he can sue the player and retire. Yeah. And Armstead is actually writing that. And what I want to say is it's irresponsible and it's untrue. And while we're talking about being adults, I know all about quoting. I was a writer for newspapers for 40 years. If you're going to take a quote out of context, you need to explain why you've done that, or you shouldn't do it. So, Iggy, tell him what you actually said, and let's compare that to what Armstead is writing.
What I actually said, someone asked, were you afraid when Javon Kinlaw approached you on the field? And I said, no. And I knew that if he touched me, then I would sue him and I would become a multimillionaire and retire. And that was a funny way of saying, I was joking. Of course, I don't want to get punched. It was a funny way of saying there were hundreds of witnesses. I know a person isn't going to assault me in front of witnesses and cameras. I mean, everyone knows that. You told me that from a very long time ago. They're not going to touch you, Grant. Athletes in general. So I was sort of prepared. I was very surprised that he touched my hat because that's kind of like touching me. But he was never going to punch me in front of 100 people. I mean, I didn't think he was going to ruin his career that day is what I was trying to say. I don't know. Armstead's interpreting it like I want to ruin players' careers.
That's right. So
I don't ruin anyone's career.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what Armstead is doing is actually modifying what you said in such a way to make it untrue.
Right.
What he's saying, and portraying what you said is untrue.
Right.
So I'm calling you out, Eric Armstead. I think you must be a very nice man. I love what you're doing up in Sacramento, but I'm calling you out as a journalist. What you did was irresponsible and not in anyone's interest, not in the team's interest. The team, by the way, is very much behind Grant on this. Not in the team's interest, not in Javon's interest, not in your interest, Eric. So you can keep putting that stuff up. But I'm calling you out and saying that you've been irresponsible. You've not acted like the grown-up that I think you are. And if you were a journalist, your editor would drag you into his office or her office and tell you you can no longer do things like this.
And stop bothering SI Now on Twitter. I write for Fan Nation, which is part of the Sports Illustrated network. SI Now is different. Leave him alone. I don't work for them. He's complaining about them to me. You know what I'm saying? About me to them. I don't work for them. I work for Fan Nation, which is part of the Sports Illustrated network. That's the branding. It's important to get the branding right.
Okay, say the branding again.
Fan Nation, part of the Sports Illustrated network. That's what I'm in. It is not right to Sports Illustrated or to me, Eric, to erroneously connect me to SI Now. It's not what I work for. Fan Nation, part of the Sports Illustrated network. It's important to get, hey, man, you're quoting, you're attributing, got to get it right. Got to get it right. Walter Payton Man of the Year finalist. You got to get this stuff right. All right. Thank you, Eric. Ethan M says, do you think maybe some comments you make cross the line of criticism and trolling? You stated there is a big gray area. I try not to cross the line. To me, the line is talking about personal stuff. Like things I don't know. He's not a hard worker. I don't know that. I would never say that about someone. He doesn't love football. I don't know that. I would never say that about someone. So that would be crossing the line. I don't know. Maybe I do sometimes.
I have other ways that you could cross the line, and one never does. I used to travel a lot with teams. I knew what players were cheating on their wives.
Ooh.
You know that.
Ooh.
No one writes that stuff. That's crossing the line because it's personal. It doesn't have anything to do with what's happening on the baseball field or the football field or the basketball court. You stay away from things like that. Let people work out their own marriages. So you stay away from that sort of personal stuff. Yes, Iggy.
Another way crossing the line, something that's off the record, taking it public. So like, let's say I went yesterday after the meeting with Lynch and Javon. Hey, here's what we said. Here's everything that would happen. That would be crossing the line. That would be violating everyone's trust. Big time.
Yes.
Big time.
But Iggy, I want to come back to Armstead for a minute because you're a little worked up today. When you were saying get the Fan Nation right, you weren't really angry about Armstead. No. You were joking, right?
Joking.
Because what happened?
Branding matters.
Okay, no. Explain what happened with the SI people.
Well, when this happened, I just talked to my bosses at SI. Everything's cool. But what happened was like when this went viral and like New York Post wrote about it, TMZ wrote about it, and some people said Grant Cohn of Sports Illustrated. I'm not a full-time employee of Sports Illustrated. I work for Fan Nation, which is associated with Sports Illustrated. So they're just like, hey man, like, this is too bad. We want it. It's just us. It's not Sports Illustrated. And I think there was just some confusion. And I have to, in the future, as you know, I no longer have Sports Illustrated behind me. We're trying to get the branding right because Fan Nation is coming up. It's an internet thing. And I'm proud of it. We're all proud of ourselves.
Okay.
So I say Fan Nation with pride from my chest.
So Eric, in the future, when you want to criticize Grant, say whatever you want. Although I hope you say things that are accurate. Say whatever you want, but associate him with Fan Nation, part of the SI network, as opposed to SI. Thanks,
fair. Fair is fair. Nathan says at Big Timer 21, it was a joke. Get over it. I don't know what you're referring to. Okay, the Armstead thing. Okay, Lauren says this whole saga shows that Kinlaw focuses too much on the outside noise. He shouldn't give a crap about what Grant says.
Fair enough. Let's move on.
Let's move on. This new generation is soft social media divas. I'm part of the new generation. Isaiah says Trey area every day. Alex Rock says the reaction from some fans and media, especially some players, is a huge bummer, and I'm not sure I'm comfortable cheering for this team anymore. Really sad display, but I appreciate you, G1 love.
Well, that's
hey,
very nice.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I got to say, as long as John Lynch is in this organization, Gil says, keep you and do, Grant. Keep doing you, Grant. Thank you. We have some more. Hold on. Gavin, thank you. The Jedi says, you're more Dan Le Batard, and that's a compliment. Keep up the good work, Grant. He's another good writer.
Oh, I got to tell you, I don't know Le Batard, but I've read his writing. He's so good.
Really
I'm jealous.
Good. Yeah, he's really good.
He's so good. I'm jealous.
I'm not quite on that level. Chase says, I just have an issue with the players taking the retirement statement you made as serious. It's clearly a joke taken out of context. Yeah. It's too bad. People are so quick to try to get a person's credential taken or job taken. Saw on SF Niners don't have context, even if true. Okay, got you. Hold on. They're coming in quick. Kurrigan says, journalists have to fill large amounts of airtime and try to come at different angle from everyone else covering the same things. Keep being you, Grant. Thank you. The coach says, Eric wasn't defending Javon. He had an axe to grind with Grant for years. He found an opportunity to pile on what was said by Iggy and jest clown. You know, Eric does take a shot at me about once a year on Twitter. So it was kind of like that time of year.
Okay. All right.
So let's get back to the show. We'll have some more comments in a minute.
Okay.
Let's talk about locker room dust-ups you got into when you were covering sports for 40 years.
God. Okay. This is the best one ever. And I'm not going to tell the player's name. One time when I was at the Chronicle, it was a day game, and I was looking for a certain player before the game. I was near his locker, but someone who had the locker next to him, the player wasn't there that I was looking for. So I was hanging around, and the player at the locker next to him looked at me and he said, you are a dick-smoking cocksucker.
Wow, direct quote.
Direct quote. Iggy, I just said it.
It happened. Yeah, no, I'm okay.
Okay.
Wow. A dick-smoking cocksucker? That's descriptive.
I looked at him and I said, are you talking to me? And he said, yeah, you heard what I said. You're a dick-smoking cocksucker. So what I wanted to say, first of all, was that's a mixed metaphor.
Yeah.
But I didn't do it. But then I thought, you know, I've never written about this guy. I've never even talked to this guy.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know what? Thanks for clarifying that. I'll be in touch. So I went up, and there was nothing really that happened in the game that day that I wanted to write a column about.
Yeah.
So this guy was a marginal player, and I wrote he was number 25 on a 25-man roster. They ought to send him down to the minors and bring someone more gifted up and give him a chance. And that was on the front page of the Sporting Green the next day. So they were playing at home again the next day. I went over to the guy at his locker, and I said, hi, you got anything else to say? And
do you like apples?
You know how he dropped his eyes, Iggy? He couldn't even look at me. And my message was, you can screw with me here, but you can't screw with me.
No.
And
say something else. Say something else.
Yeah, say something else, because I'll send you down to the minors, to the AA. Yeah. And I was now I was amused by it. I'm still amused by it. But what I wanted to let him know was, you know, there's a power balance here.
Yep.
And if you're going to be shitty to me, watch.
Yep.
So now, Will Clark at first didn't like me. I would come into the clubhouse, and he would give me the finger. He'd be talking to other. Is this on the? You know, give me the finger. And Lowell Cohn like that. And then it's in my book. One time, I was at Candlestick. I was in the dugout early before a day game, and I just wasn't in the mood to go into the clubhouse because I knew what I wrote would be something based on the game. So I'm sitting alone. It was early. It was a beautiful morning, sunny. Here comes Will up the tunnel, and we're alone. There was no one else. There was just Will Clark and me in the dugout. So he starts pacing back and forth, holding a bat. Holding a bat.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what's going to happen? There's no witnesses. He's going to brain me.
He's got a weapon.
He's got a weapon. So finally he stops and he stares in front of me. He says, Lowell Cohn, you think you're so effing smart.
Oh, now you're going to censor yourself.
Well, I don't know if you're allowed to say that word.
You can say it.
Lowell Cohn, you think you're so fucking smart. Well, I just want you to know, when I was in college, I read Shakespeare and all that shit. That's what he said. And I thought, that's the greatest quote I ever had. And in years after, Will and I became quite friendly. Now, again, we're not friends. You never become friends.
No.
But you can be friendly. And he would see me and say, tell the Shakespeare story again. Tell it. I love the Shakespeare story. And it became a joke between us. Yes.
What? Real quick, do the Dwayne Kuiper one.
Oh, Dwayne Kuiper. And this this was me. It was all on me. I was a schmuck. He had come to the Giants, and I had read that he had a really bad knee. So like a jerk, I wrote a column saying that why'd they get him? He has an 80-year-old knee. Now, Kuiper, as you know, is the most delightful person. He didn't take offense. So I go in the clubhouse, and he had Darrell Evans. When Lowell comes in, show me who Lowell is. Darrell Evans is pointing. So now Kuiper comes over. He says, Lowell, I'm introducing myself. I want to let you know, I read your comment about my 80-year-old knee. He says, here's what we'll do. There's a guy who sits outside the clubhouse in a little chair. He knew his name. I don't know his name. He's 80 years old. Let's go out and have him kick you in the nuts with his 80-year-old leg. And then I'll kick you in the nuts and we'll see who has an 80-year-old knee. And I said, you know what? You win. I don't need it. I apologize. And we have had so much fun with that. There's even a chapter in my book about it. And he got a real giggle out of it. And
last one. What about Kevin Mitchell?
Yeah, Kevin Mitchell. Now, Kevin Mitchell was allegedly scary because he came from San Diego and everybody said, all the journalists were saying, he was in a gang. He's got to be. So I don't know nothing. Anyway, I see him by second base during batting practice with Jeffrey Leonard, who was another one who's pretty tough.
Yeah.
And they're pointing at me. And they're pointing at me. And then they come over. And then they come over.
Sounds like what happened to me the other day.
Sounds like what happened to meeting. They come over, and Jeffrey stays a little away. But Kevin, he's pointing at me. He says, I don't like this shit you wrote about me. I don't like that shit. And you better watch out. And I said, who are you trying to scare?
Yeah.
You're not scaring anybody.
Yeah.
Knock it off. He said, okay. And we became very friendly. In fact, even Iggy, you met him. You liked him. He was very nice to us.
He was extremely nice to us.
He's a great guy.
Yes.
But then when he walked away, Leonard had watched it and heard it. And he came over and he goes, whoa, he goes, you love this shit. That's what he said. The hackman. He says, you love this shit. And I said, Jeffrey, I do. And he goes, great. And so part of being a journalist, let me say this again, a sports journalist is having a certain amount of backbone because they're going to try to threaten you.
Yeah.
And it's in the system. They're guys who know how to use their bodies and use anger, and you have to show you're not afraid.
One thing also I want to point out, I think this was 2009. I was still in college. You took me to spring training to get my feet wet as a journalist. I interviewed Dusty Baker about something. And before the interview started, he took me to the side and said, I just want you to know, your dad isn't scared of shit, and I've seen it. And I've seen it too. I know. But yeah, he was really quite impressed. So anyway.
Yeah, in any event, so the point is, I've had that. And Iggy, I've also had death threats from fans on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
I know where you live. I'm going to get you, things like that. And that makes you uncomfortable. Now, I've never had a death threat from a player, but I have had from fans. So, one time at the Chronicle, someone at security at the Chronicle called me in a very worried voice. Someone called in and said he's going to kill you. And, I was kind of nervous, if you want to know the
Like,
truth.
did you tell him not to? Hey, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. He's a nice guy.
It's against the law. Ninth Wonder Comics says, I've been around NFL players for 20 plus years. Most are very entitled and fearful of criticism. Players only have interest in media when it benefits them.
Oh, absolutely. And they should actually cultivate the media because they can benefit from it.
Yep. They often figure that out too late. You know who's figured it out recently? Jimmy Ward. God love Jimmy Ward. He's killing it. Gavin says, Trey Lance handled it right in his presser. Ignore the outside noise. Media has a job. Keep doing what you're doing, Grant. Thank you. The Jedi says, can we spend a whole show discussing the line? Seems like the line moves all the time.
Well, I thought you expressed the line pretty good. In fact, you know what? I'm going to talk about the line right now.
Okay.
What Grant does and what I did and what, let's say, Annie Killian or Scotty Osler, we're talking about opinion people. We're all opinion writers. Iggy is an opinion talker.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing in a different venue.
Yeah.
I considered myself a critic. I started out at the Palo Alto Times as a film and drama critic. I did not start out as a sports writer. And when I would see a local production, let's say of Waiting for Godot, and let's say it sucked, okay? Let's say it was just a bad production. I had driven down to San Jose and they just didn't the actors were not good. The directing wasn't good. I didn't sit down at that time at my typewriter. It was typewriters and say, gee,
be nice.
Be nice. If I criticize this person, it'll hurt the director. It'll hurt his feelings. If I say one of the actors really wasn't up to the job, his wife might have a bad night. No, my job was to tell the truth as I understood it. If you're a restaurant critic and you're talking about some restaurant in Oakland, whatever, you can't. If the meal is really bad and the service is bad, you can't say, I'm going to say this place is really good. Otherwise, it would hurt the chef's feelings. Mm. You're telling people to spend money at this place,
right?
You have to be honest about it. Well, it's the same thing for a sports opinion person. You have to tell the truth. If so-and-so, Joe Blow, we're talking about Joe Blow, has a bad game, I can't go up there and say, oh, gosh, I don't want to hurt his feelings because his mother may read it. No, it is my job to be honest and to say, however I want. He wasn't up to the job, or he sucked, or they need to get a new player, or to be humorous about it. So what I feel is that a sports person who is an opinion person, either a writer like me or a talker like you, has an obligation to tell the truth. And if the players don't like it, well, that's part of being a player. They get compensated at a much more than you do, Iggy, and they get lectured about the media. In addition, if Joe Blow has a bad game and you point it out in your report card, which Ira Miller invented the report card and did it all the time, and Joe Montana didn't like the report card. If you give someone a bad grade in the report card, do you think the coaches come into the meeting with him and say, forget the grade that Grant gave you. You were great.
Yeah.
You were terrific. No, if he had a bad game, it's on film. And they show it in the meeting, and they are very pointed about what they say. So the criticism any player would get from me or Osler or you is nothing compared to what they're going to get from Kyle Shanahan and their position coach. And you know that.
Absolutely. That's true. That's true. And
so
what's happening, though, I feel like a lot of athletes in the younger generation are not used to critics in the building. And what's happening is, like, sports journalism is dying. And to keep your job and to keep your paycheck, you stop saying the truth. You mute your opinion, or you say that everything's going great. And I think that's what a lot of athletes are used to. And when one person actually tries to say truth as they perceive it, they look at it as unprofessional and crossing the line. Speaking the truth.
Where I consider it right in my wheelhouse. And this brings up George Kittle, who I don't know him. I don't have feelings about him one way or another. But I saw a quote from him saying, we let people like Grant in the building. He didn't use your name, and I don't understand. Well, I thought the media and athletes are supposed to get along. No, no. George, what universe do you live in? Media covers the team. They're not friends with the team. And media has to tell the truth. George, if you are on the decline in your career, I don't know if you are, but I wonder, because you get hurt a lot. If you're on the decline, and if I was still writing, I'd write a whole column about it. And I wouldn't care about your feelings. I have to tell the truth about what I see on the team. And if the team feels you're on the decline, they're looking for another tight end. Do you think they're going to say, "Oh gosh, we don't want to hurt George's feelings"? Maybe so. We'll just be mediocre if he begins to decline. They're looking to the future. Bill Walsh would have been ruthless. He might have gotten rid of you already. So the idea that George is so naive or pretends to be so naive that he says the media and the players are supposed to get along, not in any world I've ever lived in. If I were a player, I'd be very cautious around the media because they're there to write stories, not to go to your birthday party.
Oh, I liked it. Way to end it. That was a good line. Let's answer some questions. Official B&A Music 88 says Pat McAfee is talking about the story with all the facts out of order. This is no different than when national media twisted the Jimmy G narrative. Am I not surprised? That's another non-journalist. McAfee Pat McAfee is dragging, bro.
Okay.
He used to be a kicker.
So he wasn't a football player then.
Cut the drama, back to business. Come on, Cohn. I hear you. Cut the drama, back to business. Got that. Okay, hold on. There's some more. Dragging me, getting dragged. Funny how everyone's talking about me today. Nathan Flores says about you being a multimillionaire big timer, thought it was a serious. Keep doing you, Grant. It's funny how people have no sense for sarcasm.
Iggy, on Twitter, the comments are much different. They're all on my Twitter saying what a bum you are and that daddy needs to save you.
Right. Not here.
No.
People seem to like me on YouTube. I don't know why. Low speaking facts. Job is to be honest. That's right. Lowell speaking facts. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't miss because there's so many of these. Tony says, keep up the good work, push the envelope, and generate more honest player moments. Thank you. Iceman 0072 says, Damon Bruce called you son of quackers. Any beef? Any beef with Damon Bruce?
I have nothing to say about Damon Bruce.
I have nothing to say about that loser. All right. What else we got? What a loser. I'm going to get all of my promise. There's just a ton. Haha says, Lowell, you and your wife raised a son with great values and helped guide him into a professional success. Kudos to both of you. Grant, I value your courage to do your job in the face of intimidation. It's really nice of you. Matthew says, might I suggest, Eric, that taking pot shots on Twitter isn't the stuff of someone who should win the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, Eric. Character is destiny.
Character is destiny. And the Greeks knew that. That's what Greek tragedy was about.
Wolf Life Wild says, Kinlaw showed a long time ago how bad of an attitude he has. Remember those IG posts last season when he finally got ruled out? Never liked him since. Let's move on.
I have nothing bad to say about Javon Kinlaw. Again, I think he's a stand-up guy.
Yeah, agree. Couple more. Mark Lamar says Grant 99 was out of line. Don't always agree with Grant, but if 99 can't take it, wrong career. Boy acted like a whole idiot. Keep that energy for the field. Okay, Mark. Kev F says Charles Barkley has made a career of telling it like it is. He's the number one sports show in history. Everyone loves him. I love him.
Barkley's great.
Barkley is great. Rhino says the Niners are a bunch of injury-prone millionaires. Blame Lynch and Kyle Shanahan for taking chances on all these hurt dudes that can't hold up an entire season. That's what Rhino says. Thank you, Rhino. Black Suburban says, Def not saying I support things escalating, but I do understand it. You see views, clicks, and subs. They see a threat to their family's well-being. I really don't think I'm ever going to hurt a player. Anything I says isn't going to change a team's opinion of that player. I really don't think I have that kind of power.
I agree.
I am just noise. All right, let's talk about my role at the OTAs.
Okay.
What I do when I'm there.
Before you do that,
Sure.
I want to say one other thing because Iggy mentioned it briefly, but there's more. In the last day, how many radio stations have called you and wanted you to come on?
Easily 10.
And also Jason Whitlock wanted you to come on.
Jason Whitlock wants me to go on his show.
Right. And Grant has declined every time. They want to talk about Javon Kinlaw. And I'm going to speak for Grant. No, you do it. Why didn't you go on?
It's over. I don't want to profit off of this. My intention never was to get famous at Javon Kinlaw's expense. I didn't seek him out. I didn't want to ride the wave. I never wrote an article about this. I haven't posted videos about this since the day after it happened. I want it to be over, and I feel like other people are trying to profit off of the attention it's getting, and I'm not trying to fan the flames in that way. I'm trying to put this out, and I'm telling people that I work with to not stop feeding into the drama. That's how I'm approaching this.
Right. And I'm sure that the 49ers appreciate how you're behaving.
Because if I were to go on Jason Whitlock's show and say what happened, then it would validate everything that Javon Kinlaw thinks he knows about me. And it would ruin any good faith that we'd build. And it would just prove that I'm full of shit. So I didn't do that. And I've never tried to get Javon Kinlaw in trouble at any point in this process because I wouldn't ever want to hurt a player in any way. I don't.
Okay. The question next is, Iggy, when you're at OTAs, what do you see your role? What do you see? What are you trying to accomplish at OTAs?
I'm trying to bring the fans there. The fans want to see it for themselves. So my first goal is to take as many notes as possible, get as much raw data as possible, and to be as descriptive as possible within the rules. Like I don't want to give away strategy. I don't want to hurt the team, but I do want to bring the fans there in a legal way. So I'm talking taking notes, raw data, describe as much as possible. That's the beginning of it. Then from there, I mean, I've been doing this since 2011. So I have a lot of comparisons that I can draw, and I'm trying to assess each player as quickly as possible and compare them to other players I've seen in the same form, in the same practice field, same setting. I'm pretty good at it. I'm okay at it. And I'm trying to give fans insight into who's doing well and who's not doing well. And I also am trying to provide the context that I'm seeing one practice. It's only May. They're not wearing pads. I'm trying to provide the correct context, but also give fans insight and description.
Okay. What you do is you do the good and the not so good. Do you think it's unfair to write the not so good?
No, I don't think it's unfair. I've been doing it since I started on the beat consistently, and it's the most popular thing I write. And it's always been the most popular thing I write. Most people do just observations from practice, but fans want you to make a judgment. And instead of saying the bad, because it's only practice and it's only off season, me and you talked about it. Let's call it not so good. It's not that harsh to say something was not so good. But if you're going to give descriptions are boring. I mean, observations are boring. Judgments are interesting. Yes, and so you have to put them in the correct context, but that's the way it is. And the response from the readers and the fans validates that.
Yeah, you know, when I was a columnist at the Chronicle, I was there 79 to 95, and the other columnist who I respected was Glenn Dickey. Mm-hmm. And Glenn, in every one of his columns, had a judgment and an opinion. And I used to love reading it because I wanted to know what he thought.
Yeah.
And I felt that Glenn, who is a dear friend of mine, was really, really a successful columnist. Now, a lot of other columnists in the Bay Area didn't like him, but I thought it was sour grapes. I did.
Yeah, I could see it.
And when I was a columnist, I tried to be as opinionated as possible. And a lot of fans didn't like me. They used to have this sign out in the right field in Candlestick, trade Lowell Cohn. Remember, you know about that, Iggy, right? Trade Lowell Cohn.
Yeah.
And Mom thought that was the greatest. It was the greatest. And sometimes players would get angry at me and yell at me. But what it meant to me was, as long as I didn't go over a certain line, that I was okay. I was doing a good job.
Right. And before every practice, the Niners send out their house rules. I read them. I honor them. I respect the 49ers, and I don't want to put them in a bad position. So as long as you follow the rules, you're trying to bring the whole thing is to bring the fans there. And that's why I feel like I got a foothold in the industry. Is my first training camp in 2011. My training camp reports were, people liked them. They were longer. They were descriptive. They were different.
Right.
And it wasn't just the five best players on the team.
And the press Democrat loved them. It loved what you were doing.
Yep. If the Niners open their practices all year, I'd do it all year. But they don't. They used to. Yeah. When you were there, Bill Walsh would be like, "You want to watch practice? Any day." Right? Different time.
You know, I'm trying to remember. It seemed to me we watched a lot of practices.
Yeah.
it seemed to me we did, but it's been so many years since Bill Walsh. I don't remember.
Okay, let's wrap up with the final questions. Rod Simmons says, this is why people label football soft now. Grant, great job. Thanks for keeping these guys honest. Do they realize your predictions make them famous? LOL. Thanks, Rod. Isaiah, can we get a confirmed temp during the altercation? Josh Dubow was standing next to me. He said he did not detect any temperature drop. So that's my witness. Demon SS says, Grant, they are calling for your credentials on the Pat McAfee show. I would get my story out ASAP. They're spinning the story into something it was not. Okay, well, Pat McAfee doesn't work for the Niners. I've been in contact with the Niners. I've been in contact with my employers. Everything's okay. But I appreciate Pat for taking things out of context.
Yeah.
Sir, yeah.
Hold on. Did Pat call anybody?
No.
Did Pat talk to John Lynch?
No.
So in other words, he's just giving an opinion based
Right.
on second and third hand information.
Yes.
Bad show, Pat.
Bad show, Pat.
Bad show, Pat.
You're a journalist now, Pat. Do better. Call someone. Call me.
Yeah. Did he call Iggy?
You can call me. There were so many witnesses there, Pat. You call one of them. Sir says players forget that their salaries come from the total entertainment value of sports, which involves people debating and having hot takes. Some athletes embrace it in good fun, i.e. Jimmy Ward, but some are so uptight. It's kind of a buzzkill. Maybe it's just, yeah, some really are. And Brian Greasy was talking yesterday. We talked to him and he said, when I was a player, I was so bad with the media. I really had to learn that. And then I became media. And so he was a lot better yesterday, but he talked about that too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And Lynch was media.
Lynch was media. Sven says, who initiated facilitating the mending between you and Javon? After practice, I called the PR director and said, this is what happened. I would like to sit down with Javon if he's open to it, just so I can hear him out. Corey passed that along to John Lynch. John thought it was a great idea. John coordinated the whole thing. It was my idea, though.
But again, props to John Lynch and to Kinlaw for doing it.
Absolutely. No question. Rock Nico says, you're so fortunate to have a consigliere in your father. Keep serving the real. We love it. Yeah, that's true. You're not Tom Hagen, Dad. You are Marlon Brando.
I never put a horse's head in anyone's bed.
No, that's what Tom Hagen did because he wasn't a wartime consigliere. You were a wartime consigliere. Haha says, you lame foamers are not going to intimidate anyone. Okay, thank you for $2. There might be a couple of more. I don't want to miss them. I appreciate all of your donations. Hold on. Oh, we got people saying stuff about Jews. I missed that. Sorry about that. Quest for 6. Will you apologize to Kinlaw personally if he makes Pro Bowl this year? Yeah, I'll make an apology video if he makes the Pro Bowl for sure. I've done a lot of apology videos. Ninth Wonder comment says, let's talk about Niners fans trolling me on Twitter because I side with Grant, but also calling Grant a troll. Certified clowns. Grant is unbiased and real. Well, I'm sorry you're getting flack on my part. You don't have to have my back. It's okay. I can handle myself. There might be a couple of more. Lastly, football criticism from a sports analyst, especially with one experience and expertise, is a lot different than personal attacks on character. No, right? I never attack someone's character. That's crossing the line. KJ Everly says, Grant, your videos always make my day better. Keep your head up and keep doing your thing. Good thing. Good to see you as well as Lowell the legend. Thank you. You are the legend. Love your content, Grant. Keep making videos. Thank you. All right, that's it. Dad, this was a good show.
Yes, it was very interesting. And we went to places we usually don't go. So thanks, everybody, for watching. Iggy and I and his wife were having dinner tonight, which makes me very happy. So I love you, Iggy, and I'll see you tonight.
Love you too, Dad. See you tonight. Thanks for watching, everyone.